In 1971, National Airlines released this advertisement. It pictured a real flight attendant and a new slogan, "Fly Me."
Hi, today we are going to talk about the discrimination against female flight attendants in the history. From 1950 to 1970 and then to 1970 onwards, we will discuss till
all over Florida. Fly me.
Within months, the campaign included Joe, Denise, and Laura.
The airlines basically tried to sell the stewardesses as sex objects.
I'm Diane. Fly me. I'm Terry. Fly me. I'm Marisa. Fly me.
And it worked. After the Fly Me campaign, National saw a 19% jump in ticket sales.
Today. During the mid-20th century, the role of flight attendants, then called stewardess, was steeped in gender-based discrimination and strict regulations. So the physical appearance requirements were like airlines imposed strict beauty standards. Female flight attendants were required to be young, attractive, slim, and maintain a polished appearance. Height and weight restrictions were enforced rigorously. For example, airlines and height requirements of around 5 feet 2 inches to 5 feet 6 inches and weight restrictions of 110 to 135.
Soon, other airlines followed. This was one of the many ways that the airline industry degraded flight attendants and discriminated against them for decades, until flight attendants got together and pushed back.
It was pretty spectacular to be in a room full of other flight attendants who were saying, enough is enough.
And I was just not going to sit back and allow.
Marital and age restrictions. Women were required to remain unmarried during their tenure. If they got married, they were often terminated. Age limits were also enforced, with many airlines requiring women to retire from the role by their early 30s. Sexualized advertising was there as well. Airlines frequently used the image of young, attractive stewardesses in their marketing campaigns to appeal to male passengers, reinforcing the stereotype of flight attendants as objects of
this to continue.
Flight attendants changed the airline industry and became one of the first groups in the U.S. to fight discrimination in the workplace.
They truly paved the way for working women in the United States today, and nobody knows about them.
Desire rather than professionals. One more thing was the workplace harassment. Female flight attendants faced significant sexual harassment from passengers and even co-workers, with little or no support from employers.
This working jet set, who breakfast in New York and lunch in Phoenix.
Throughout the 50s and 60s, becoming a flight attendant, known as a stewardess at the time, was one of the most coveted jobs for women.
If you were a young woman and your other employment opportunities were things like teacher or nurse or maybe a man's secretary, the idea you could be jet-setting around the country, talking to men like Don Draper.
Where are you staying?
Belvedere.
You can see how appealing that might have been.
Let's talk about 1980 to 2000, progressive legal changes and evolving norms. The feminist movement of 1960 and 1970, alongside broader social shifts, began to dismantle these discriminatory practices.
The airline sold an elite, glamorous image of air travel and relied on stewardesses to deliver that message.
The smiling hostess or stewardess who anticipates the needs of every passenger.
To make sure stewardesses matched the standards that were advertised to passengers, airlines came up with incredibly strict hiring practices.
One was the Legal Protection Civil Rights Act of 1964. Title VII prohibited employment discrimination based on sex, leading to changes against airline policies.
To qualify on most airlines, she must be healthy, single, and between the ages of 21 and 28. She must be between 5 feet 2 and 5 feet 6 inches in height and of normal weight.
You had to have straight teeth, clear skin, no glasses. You had to be extremely slim.
When I first applied, I had a male interviewer at that time who measured my hips.
Number two was the court rulings, lawsuits in 1970, 1984, and airlines to eliminate gender-based restrictions. For example, age and marriage restrictions were deemed discriminatory.
The process was designed to make the job feel exclusive. One ad for Eastern Airlines even presented the losers, showcasing that they pass up around 19 girls before getting one that qualifies.
They're probably good enough to get a job anywhere they want. But at Eastern, we're very choosy about whom we let serve you on a plane.
One more thing is the broader inclusion. Male flight attendants began to enter the profession in significant numbers, challenging the perception of the role of exclusively female. Airlines started emphasizing professionalism and safety training over physical appearances.
She's awkward. She wears glasses.
But the biggest one was,
she's married.
You couldn't be married.
A male business traveler could get on the airplane, look around, and know that all of these stewardesses were theoretically available.
That's where age limits played a big role, too. Airlines wanted to keep the workforce young, and some forced women to retire as young as 27.
One more thing was the improved workplace protections. Airlines implemented policies to address sexual harassment and provided more structured mechanism for reporting grievances. And the uniform reforms. Uniforms shifted away from overly sexualized designs to more professional attire, reflecting the changing attitude towards the role of flight attendants.
A lot of these hiring restrictions were explicit, but there was one standard that was unwritten yet consistently enforced. You had to be white.
They did not want us on board.
The fight to take down these industry standards started with black women like Patricia Banks.
My name is Patricia Noisette Banks Edmiston. I became the first black flight attendant on a commercial aircraft in 1960.
Now let's talk about 2000 to 2025 now. Emphasis on diversity and inclusion. By the 21st century, the role of flight attendants evolved significantly, reflecting broader changes in the workplace equality. Diversify in recruitment, airlines began to emphasize diversity, hiring individuals of all genders, ages, and ethnicities. Physical appearance was no longer a criterion for employment, though airlines still required a professional presentation.
I saw an advertisement for the Grace Downs Air Career School, and I said, oh wow, this sounds great. I think I'd like to do this. And I always thought it would be interesting to travel around the world and see what other places were like, and I was accepted into the school.
Patricia was the only black student at Grace Downs Air Career School. After completing the program in 1956, she interviewed with TWA, Mohawk, and Capital, which would later merge with United for a stewardess position.
Family-friendly policies. Airlines introduced policies to accommodate work-life balance, such as maternity leave, flexible schedules, and childcare support, and stronger protection against harassment. The Me Too/Me Too movement and other advocacy campaigns spurred airlines to reinforce anti-harassment policies and promote a respectful workplace culture.
Paula Marie Daughter flew over 3 million miles as a stewardess and model for TWA.
And it was pretty much the standard fare in terms of how they treated young women.
And the union advocacy. Flight attendants' unions became stronger advocates for fair treatment, better wages, and improved working conditions.
To share is that when no marriage policies were rampant in the airline industry, it's estimated that up to 30% of stewardesses were secretly married. Just another one of the many ways that they challenge sex discrimination at work.
And the evolving uniforms. Airlines adopted more inclusive and practical uniforms, offering a range of options to suit different body types and cultural preferences. And the increased professionalism. Flight attendants are now recognized as highly trained safety professionals with a focus on passenger safety, emergency response, and customer service.
As restrictions changed, so did the makeup of the industry. Older, married, and black stewardesses increasingly joined the profession. The legal fights had altered the airline industry, and taken together, they would also alter the future of women's labor in the U.S.
So let's conclude the journey from the restrictive and discriminatory practices of the 1950 to the more inclusive and equitable environment of 2025 highlights significant social progress. Today, flight attendants are valued for their expertise and professionalism rather than being judged on superficial criteria, while challenges remain. Ongoing advocacy and legal protections continue to shape the aviation industry. So this was our conclusion regarding the issues, and we can talk more about it. Thank you.